Okay then, so welcome to this solutions video for your 20 questions for the week commencing the 23rd of March. So for the first question, we have subtracting fractions. So for subtracting fractions, you need to make sure your denominator is the same. Now in previous times, we have obviously times the bottom two together to make a common denominator, but in this instance, we can just quite easily make the 2 on the bottom of here into a 4 by doubling it. Now if we remember, we have to do the same to the top and the bottom. So in order to get from 1/2 to something with 4 on the bottom, we are going to have to times it by 2. So we have to do the same thing for the top as well, which would make it 2/4, which is equivalent to a half. So now we would have 3/4 minus 2/4. And then we just do the top two numbers, so the answer would be 1/4. So that's the answer for the first one. Second one is, in actual fact, it is adding fractions this time. So this time we can just times the bottom two, so times the bottom two to get a common denominator. So then we would have the same number on the bottom. So this time, 4 times 6, we would have 24 on the bottom of each fraction. Now this side we've times by 6, so we do the same thing to the top. So 6 times 1 is 6, and this side we've times by 4, so we do 4 times 1 is 4. And then when we add them together, we just add the top numbers, so we would have 10/24. We would, however, have to make sure we simplify this, so we can obviously halve both of them, and if we halve 10 we get 5, and if we halve 24 we get 12. So that would be the answer for that one. Now the next one says round this very long number, so 579,697 to one significant figure. So one significant figure in this case would be the very first one. So we would have a 5 as our first one, but our second number is obviously above 5, so therefore that rounds the first one up, so it would go to a 6, and then we would have the rest as zeros, so it would become 600,000. Okay, so the next one says round 0.42254 to one significant figure. Now again, we have to look for the first number that we can see. So the number we can see here is a number 4, and the number after it is a 2, which is below 5, so therefore we've rounded down. So here we end up with just 0.4. Now we can move on to timesing fractions, which is much easier than adding and subtracting fractions that we've done before. So for timesing fractions, all you have to do is times the top two numbers together. So 1 times 1 is 1. And then you times the bottom two numbers, so 5 times 2 is 10. So nice and simple for that one. That is a 0, not a 6, so that is 1/10. That's even less like a 0. There we are. Okay, so next one is dividing by fractions. So we've done this a few times, so we always do the same thing. So we do keep, flip, and change. So we keep the first one exactly the same. We flip the second fraction upside down, so 1/3 becomes 3/1. And then we change this symbol here from a divide to a times. So then we get 2 times 3. So remember, multiplying fractions, we just times the top two numbers and times the bottom two numbers. So we have 2 times 3, which would equal 6, and 5 times 1, which equals 5. So in this case, we have a top-heavy fraction, which is no good. So we have to see how many of my bottom number fit into the top number. So that is 1. How many have I got left over? 1. So it would be 1/5. Okay, so for this one, we are looking to factorize, so hopefully you remember that factorizing means putting some brackets in. So we've got to find a common, kind of a common thing between these two sections here. So we need something that goes into both of them. So in this case, something that's common between both of them would be the number 4. So 4 obviously goes into 36 9 times, and 4 goes into 16 4 times. So the thing that's common between the two parts would go on the outside of the bracket, so we can put our 4 there. Now we put our brackets in, and we've just got to make sure we match up these things, so that when we times them out, it equals this what we were given in the first place. So we need 4 times something equals 36x. Now in this case, to get 36, I need to do 4 times 9, but obviously I've got an x as well, so I can put my x in there, because 4 times 9x would equal 36x. And if you remember the number on the outside of the bracket, if there's nothing in between that and the bracket, it means that we times it, okay? Now we've got to do the same thing for the other bit, so minus 16. So we need 4 times something equals minus 16, and in this case 4 times minus 4 is minus 16. So for the next one, we need to again have something common between 80x squared and 70x that can go on the outside of the brackets. So in this case, we could have the number 10 because the number 10 goes into both of them. But in addition, for this one, there's a letter that's common for both of them. So in this case, x is also common for both of them. So we can also pop that on the outside there. So now we've got 10x on the outside. We just need to kind of fix this so that whatever we times this by, it equals both parts here. So in order to get 80, we would have to times 10 by 8. And in order to get x squared, we would have to times that by x itself, because x times x would be x squared. Now, to get 70x from 10x, we would obviously need to times it by 7. Okay, so we would put 7 there. Now you can test these by just making sure that they add up. So you can do 10x times 8x, and that would obviously equal 80x squared, and then you can do 10x times 7x, which would equal, sorry, not x, 10x times 7, which would equal 70x. Okay, then for question 9, we've got find the highest common factor of 50 and 30. Okay, so for the next one, as I said, we need to find the highest common factor of 50 and 35. So this is, we can look at our kind of factor pairs for each of them, so kind of the numbers that go into these two, and we have to find the highest number that goes into both of these. And in this case, the answer would be 5, because 5 goes into 35 7 times, and it goes into 50 10 times. So express 10 as a product of its prime factors. So we did this last time, so you would write your number 10, and then you would start seeing what goes into it. So you've got 2 times 5, and you've got to kind of keep going that until you realise that it's a prime number, so the only things that go into it are itself and the number 1. And in this case, 2 is a prime number, and also 5 is a prime number, so those are your product of prime factors for the number 10. So the next one, we got 54 times 48, so we were doing this using the box method, so if you remember, we always have 50, and we have 4, and we have 40, and we have 8. Okay, so then we can just do them all together. So 40 times 50, we would do 4 times 5 is 20, and then add our 2 zeros. Then we would have 4 times 40, which would be 160. Then we'd have 8 times 50, which would be 400. And then we'd have 8 times 4, which would be 32. And then obviously we can just add all of those together, which would be 2592. So that is the answer to that one. Okay, so now we've got the same principle. So we've got 600 this time. We've got 70, and we've got 9, and then we want to times it by 70, and we want to times it by 1. So let's start with the 1s, that's nice and easy. 1 times 600 is obviously 600, 1 times 70 is 70, and 1 times 9 is 9. A little bit trickier, so 7 times 6 is 42, and then you can add your zeros, and then 7 times 7 is 49, again add your zeros, that you've got 2 of those there, and then 9 times 7 is 63 plus your 1 0, and then if you add all of those together, you would get 48,209. So that's the answer there. So now we want to express 0.13 as a percentage. Now a percentage is out of 100, so all we have to do is times that by 100. So we've got 0.13, times something by 100, you move your decimal point twice because that's for 100, so the answer would be 13%. Expressing 15 over 20 as a percentage, so as I said, we've got to get the bottom number to 100 because that's what percentages are out of. It's nice and easy for this one, so we can do this as a non-calculator question. So we would times the bottom number by 5, and we would then get 100 on the bottom, which is what we want. And then it's a fraction turning into a percentage, so we have to do the same thing to the top as well. So 5 times 15 would be 75. So once you've got that on top of 100, that's your answer, so it would be 75%. So what is the 9th square number? So this is kind of just a knowledge one. You can list your square numbers. But obviously if we want the 9th square number, and a square number is by definition it times by itself, we know that we want the 9th one, so 9 times itself would be 81. So 81 is your 9th square number.